The courtroom felt like ice as I watched my son, Tyler, sign his name on legal papers that would make me homeless. 32 years I'd lived in that house. 32 years of memories, now reduced to a stack of documents his attorney slid across the mahogany table. His wife, Carly, squeezed his hand, encouraging. Then my grandson, little Danny, stood up from the back row. "Your Honor," his voice cracked with nerves, "may I please show you something? My dad doesn't know I have it. My name is Mona, and I'm 67 years old. I spent 30 years teaching second grade at Riverside Elementary, here in Sacramento, California. Those were good years, filled with children's laughter and the satisfaction of watching young minds grow. But nothing compared to the joy of coming home each evening to the house my husband Frank and I bought back in 1993. We paid $160,000 for that two-story craftsman home in a quiet neighborhood lined with oak trees. Frank used to joke that we overpaid, but I loved every corner of that place. The wraparound porch, where we'd drink coffee on Sunday mornings. The kitchen with its big window overlooking my rose garden. The upstairs bedrooms where we raised our son Tyler, where I imagined someday our grandchildren might play. Frank died 9 years ago from complications of diabetes. He was only 61. The house felt enormous and empty after that, but I couldn't bear to leave. Every room held memories of him, of us, of the life we built together. The mortgage was paid off. Property taxes were manageable on my teacher's pension. I had my garden, my bridge club, my routines. I was content, if lonely. Tyler was our only child. He's 41 now, always been ambitious, driven. He went into commercial real estate right out of college and did well for himself. We weren't as close as I wished, especially after Frank died, but I understood. He had his own life, his career, his family. 6 years ago, Tyler married Carly. She was a pharmaceutical sales representative, very polished and put together, always dressed impeccably, her blonde hair styled just so, her nails perfect. I tried to get along with her. I really did. But there was something cold about Carly, something calculating in the way she looked at things, at people, at my house. They had a son, Danny, who just turned 10. From the moment that boy was born, he had my whole heart. He looked like Tyler did at that age, with the same bright eyes and curious nature. Danny loved coming to visit me. We'd bake cookies, work in the garden, read stories on the porch swing. 4 years ago, everything changed. Tyler's real estate company got caught up in a major lawsuit. Some deal gone wrong, properties that were misrepresented, angry investors. The details were complicated, but the result was simple. Tyler lost a lot of money. His savings evaporated paying legal fees and settlements. At the time, he and Carly were renting an expensive apartment in downtown Sacramento, $3,000 a month for 2 bedrooms. They couldn't afford it anymore, not with Tyler's reduced income and mounting debts. That's when they called me. "Mom," Tyler said over the phone, his voice strained, "we're in a tough spot financially, just temporarily. Would you mind if we moved in with you for a few months, just until I get back on my feet?" My heart leaped. Family, living with me again, Danny here every day, the house filled with voices and life, instead of echoing silence. I said yes, immediately, eagerly. Told them to take as long as they needed. They moved in on a Saturday in April. I gave them the entire upstairs, 2 bedrooms and a full bathroom. I kept the main floor bedroom for myself. It seemed like a fair arrangement. They'd have privacy, their own space, and I'd have my grandson nearby. The first few months were actually pleasant. Danny and I fell into a wonderful routine. I'd make him breakfast before school, help with homework in the afternoons, listened to his stories about his day. Tyler seemed relieved to be somewhere stable. Even Carly, for all her polish, seemed to relax a little. But Carly made comments, constant little observations that felt like criticisms. "This house is so cramped, isn't it?" she'd say, standing in my perfectly adequate living room. "Everything feels so outdated. Those curtains must be 20 years old." They were, and I loved them. Frank and I had picked them out together. I paid for everything. All the utilities, the property taxes, the home insurance, the maintenance. I bought most of the groceries. Tyler had promised to contribute $500 monthly toward expenses, but the checks rarely came. When I gently mentioned it, he'd look embarrassed and say next month for sure. After a while, I stopped asking. Carly began treating me less like the homeowner and more like live-in help. She expected me to babysit Danny constantly, not that I minded spending time with him, but she never asked, just assumed. She expected me to cook all the meals, do everyone's laundry, clean up after them. When I suggested maybe we could share chores, she got teary-eyed and told Tyler I was being difficult. 1 year passed, then 2. Tyler's finances did improve. He found a new job at a different firm, was bringing in decent money again, but they didn't move out. Whenever I gently suggested they might want to start looking for their own place, now that they were stable, Carly would explode. "You want to kick out your own family?" she'd cry. "You don't care about your grandson's stability? He's finally settled in his school. He has friends. You're so selfish, Mona. What kind of grandmother does this?" Tyler always sided with her. "Mom, please, don't be unreasonable. We're family. Isn't this better for everyone?" So I backed down. I didn't want to lose them. Didn't want to lose Danny. I swallowed my frustration and told myself it was fine. This was what family did. Then came the morning that changed everything. It was a Tuesday in March, early spring. I was in the backyard tending my roses. It's my sanctuary, that garden. Frank and I planted the first bushes 30 years ago, and I've added to it every year since. The roses were just starting to bud, tight spirals of red and pink and yellow waiting to bloom. The kitchen window was open. I heard Carly's voice, sharp and clear. She was on her phone, talking to someone, laughing. "The old woman actually thinks we're leaving," she said. My hands froze on the pruning shears. "Tyler's got the whole thing planned. We're going to force her out and take the house. It's community property, right? Tyler's her only heir. His lawyer says we have multiple angles to work with." The voice on the other end said something I couldn't make out. Carly laughed again, cruel and bright. "She's getting forgetful, emotional, probably early Alzheimer's. We're documenting everything. Tyler's lawyer says if we can prove incompetence, we can get guardianship, then transition the house to us. She'll end up in some state facility, one of those Medicaid places. We'll be free of her, and we'll have a $700,000 house. Not bad, right?" I dropped the shears. They hit the flagstone with a clatter. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I might be sick. They were planning this, planning to take my house, my home, everything Frank and I built, planning to have me declared incompetent and locked away somewhere. And every forgetful moment, every time I'd misplaced my keys or forgotten a name, they'd been documenting it as evidence against me. I stood there in my garden, surrounded by the roses Frank and I had planted, and felt the ground shift under my feet. My own son, my own flesh and blood, was planning to betray me in the worst way imaginable. I spent the next 3 days in a fog of panic and disbelief. I tried to act normal around Tyler and Carly, but every interaction felt poisoned now. Every smile was a lie. Every conversation was a trap. I watched them more carefully. Noticed things I'd overlooked before. Carly was constantly taking photos of the house with her phone. She'd frame shots of cluttered corners, unmade beds, dishes in the sink, making it look worse than it was. She kept a small notebook, too, writing things down. Notes about me, I realized. Times I forgot something. Moments I seemed confused. Tyler had become distant with me over the past year, but now I understood why. He couldn't look me in the eye because he knew what he was planning, his own mother, and he was plotting to destroy me. On Friday evening, Tyler came into the living room where I was reading. He had some papers in his hand, official-looking documents. "Mom, I need you to sign these," he said, not quite meeting my gaze. "They're just routine property tax documents, annual filing stuff." Before, I would have signed without thinking, trusted him. But now, I was suspicious of everything. "Let me read them first," I said, reaching for the papers. Tyler's jaw tightened. "There's nothing to read. It's standard paperwork. Just sign." "I'd like to read anything before I sign it," I said, keeping my voice level. His face flushed red. "This is ridiculous. You're being paranoid and difficult. I'm trying to help you, and you're acting like I'm the enemy." "I just want to understand what I'm signing," I replied. He snatched the papers back. "Forget it. I'll handle it myself." He stormed out of the room. Carly appeared in the doorway a moment later, her expression icy. "You're making this very hard on him," she said quietly. "He's trying to take care of you, and you're being impossible. We're starting to worry about you, Mona. Really worry." The threat in her voice was barely concealed. The next day, Saturday, I went to my weekly bridge club. It's a group of 6 women I've played with for 15 years, meeting at the community center every Saturday afternoon. It was my escape, my social connection, the one place I could forget about the tension at home for a few hours. I came home around 5 in the evening, pulling into my driveway with that familiar sense of relief at being back in my own space. Except when I tried to unlock the front door, my key wouldn't work. Confused, I tried again. Nothing. The lock had been changed. I rang the doorbell. Tyler answered, looking annoyed. "Why are the locks changed?" I asked. "My key doesn't work. There's a plumbing issue in your bedroom," he said. "A leak behind the walls. We had to shut off water to that whole section. The room's unsafe right now. We've moved your things to the guest room downstairs." "What? Since when? Why didn't anyone tell me?" "We tried calling you, but you didn't answer," Carly said, appearing behind Tyler. "We had to act fast before the leak caused major damage. You really should keep your phone on, Mona." I checked my phone. No missed calls, no messages. They let me in, and I went to check my bedroom. The door was locked. Through it, Tyler called, "Don't go in there. I told you, it's not safe. Plumber will be here Monday." I went downstairs to the basement guest room. It was tiny, cramped, with a small window set high near the ceiling that barely let in any light. The room smelled musty, felt damp. My belongings had been haphazardly dumped on the bed and floor. Clothes wrinkled, personal items scattered carelessly. This wasn't temporary. This was deliberate. They were isolating me, controlling me, making me feel powerless in my own home. I needed help. I needed advice. That night, after Tyler and Carly went upstairs, I called my friend Ruth. We'd taught together at Riverside Elementary, and she'd retired the same year I did. She was one of the few people I trusted completely. "Ruth," I whispered into the phone, "something terrible is happening." I told her everything. The conversation I'd overheard, the changed locks, the way they were trapping me. Ruth was horrified. "Mona, this is elder abuse, financial exploitation. You need a lawyer immediately. She gave me the name of an attorney, Margaret Brennan, who she knew through a friend. The next morning, Sunday, I called Margaret's emergency line. She agreed to meet me Monday morning. But Monday, everything fell apart. I woke early and got dressed, planning to drive to Margaret's office at 9. But when I went to the kitchen for coffee, I found Tyler blocking the doorway. "Where are you going?" he asked. "Out. I have an appointment." "With who?" "That's my business, Tyler." His expression hardened. "I don't think you should be driving, Mom. You're not yourself lately. I'm concerned about your safety." "I'm perfectly capable of driving," I said, trying to push past him. He didn't move. "Give me your keys." "What?" "No, those are my car keys." "Mom, I'm worried about you. You're confused, forgetful. What if you get lost? What if you have an accident?" "Tyler, get out of my way. I'm going to my appointment." Carly appeared, her phone already in hand. "Tyler, maybe we should call someone. A doctor, or—" "I don't need a doctor," I said, my voice rising. "I need you to let me leave my own house." But Tyler reached into my purse, which was on the counter, and took my car keys. "Just grab them. I'm keeping these until we can get you evaluated," he said, "for your own good." I was trapped. Literally a prisoner in my own home. I went back to the basement room and called Margaret from there. Explained what was happening. She told me to get to her office any way I could, that this was urgent. That afternoon, Ruth came to pick me up. Bless that woman. When she knocked on the door, I grabbed my purse and headed for the exit, but Tyler was ready. As Ruth and I tried to leave, he called the police. 2 officers arrived within 10 minutes. Tyler met them at the door, all concern and worry. "Officers, thank you for coming," he said, his voice shaking. "My mother, she's not well. She has dementia, early stages, and she's trying to leave with someone we don't know. I'm afraid she'll get hurt or lost." "That's not true," I said. "This is Ruth. She's my friend. We taught together for 20 years. "Mom, you're confused," Tyler said gently, that fake compassion in his voice. "You haven't seen Ruth in years. She moved to Florida, remember?" Ruth stepped forward. "I'm Ruth Patterson. I live here in Sacramento. I've known Mona for 30 years. She's not confused and she's not ill. She's being held against her will." Tyler pulled out papers, official-looking documents. "I've filed for guardianship. I have a petition here, and a doctor's statement about her cognitive decline. Until the court resolves this, she needs to stay here where she's safe." The officers looked at the documents, then at me with pity in their eyes. "Ma'am," one of them said gently, "it looks like there's a legal process underway. Until that's resolved, it's probably best you stay put. Your son seems very concerned about you." "He's lying," I said, but even I could hear how desperate I sounded. "He's trying to steal my house. He's not concerned about me." The officers exchanged glances. They saw an elderly woman, agitated and paranoid, making wild accusations against her devoted son. Ruth tried to argue, but they were polite and firm. Until the court sorted things out, I should remain at home. Ruth had to leave. I watched her go, saw the devastation on her face. That night, Tyler came to the basement room. His expression was cold, victorious. "If you try anything like that again," he said quietly, "I'll have you committed for psychiatric evaluation, 72-hour hold. Do you understand?" I understood. I was completely trapped. The court date arrived 10 days later. I'd barely been able to communicate with Margaret. Tyler monitored my phone calls, intercepted my mail. I felt like I was suffocating. Margaret and I had one brief phone conversation before the hearing. She sounded worried. "Without the original deed, this is going to be difficult, Mona," she said. "County records show the property in your name, but Tyler's lawyer is going to argue that this rental agreement supersedes it. And if they can convince the judge you're mentally incompetent..." She didn't have to finish. We both knew what would happen. The morning of the hearing, I dressed carefully. Wanted to look competent, capable. Not like someone who needed a guardian. The courthouse was downtown. A massive concrete building that smelled like floor polish and anxiety. Margaret met me in the hallway. She was in her late 50s, with short gray hair and sharp eyes. She'd reviewed my case and said she'd do her best, but her expression wasn't encouraging. "They've built a strong case," she warned. "Tyler's lawyer is Gregory Fuller. He's good, expensive. He doesn't take cases he thinks he'll lose." The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Wood paneling, fluorescent lights, an American flag in the corner. Judge Andrew Walsh presided, a middle-aged man with thinning hair and an impatient expression. He clearly had a full docket and wanted to move through cases quickly. Tyler and Carly sat at one table with Gregory Fuller, who wore an expensive suit and had the smooth confidence of someone who won often. Margaret and I sat at the other table. I felt small, powerless. Judge Walsh called the case. Fuller stood up, his voice resonant and assured. "Your Honor, this is a straightforward unlawful detainer action. My client, Tyler Morrison, is the rightful owner of the property in question. 3 years ago, his mother, Mona Morrison, signed a rental agreement, acknowledging that she would pay $500 monthly rent to remain in the home. She has failed to pay rent for the past 6 months and refuses to vacate. We're seeking immediate eviction." He slid documents across to the judge, the fake rental agreement with my forged signature. Margaret objected. "Your Honor, Mrs. Morrison owns this property. She's lived there for 32 years. This alleged rental agreement is fraudulent." Fuller smiled. "We have a notarized signature, Your Honor. We also have testimony from the notary who witnessed Mrs. Morrison sign the document." He called his first witness, a man named Dennis Howard, mid-40s, wearing a cheap suit. He took the stand and swore to tell the truth. "Mr. Howard, what is your profession?" Fuller asked. "I'm a notary public, licensed in California for 18 years. Do you recognize this document?" Fuller showed him the rental agreement. "Yes. I notarized that signature 3 years ago. April 15th, 2022. "And you witnessed Mona Morrison sign this document?" "Yes, sir. She showed me her ID, signed in my presence. Standard procedure." He was lying. I'd never met this man in my life. But he was calm, professional, believable. Margaret cross-examined him, trying to poke holes in his testimony, but he stuck to his story. Then Fuller presented financial documents, bank statements showing deposits of $500 monthly into an account, labeled rental income from Morrison property. Except it wasn't my account. It was Tyler's. He'd been depositing money into his own account and calling it rent payments from me, creating a paper trail. The evidence looked damning. I could see Judge Walsh's expression shifting, becoming convinced. Then Fuller called Dr. Samuel Porter to testify. Dr. Porter was a psychiatrist, late 50s, with wire-rimmed glasses and an air of clinical authority. He took the stand and testified that he'd evaluated me 2 months prior. "I evaluated Miss Morrison at the request of her son, who was concerned about her cognitive function," Dr. Porter said. "My findings indicate clear signs of dementia, likely Alzheimer's disease in early stages. She exhibited confusion about dates, difficulty with memory recall, and paranoid ideation. Paranoid ideation? Fuller prompted. Yes, she expressed beliefs that her family was conspiring against her, that they were trying to steal from her. Classic paranoid delusions often seen in cognitive decline. I wanted to scream. I'd never been evaluated by this man. Either Tyler had arranged some kind of fake evaluation without my knowledge, or Dr. Porter was lying for money. Margaret fought back hard. She questioned the lack of medical records, the suspicious timing of the evaluation. But Dr. Porter remained calm and professional. Then Fuller showed photos. Pictures of the house in disarray. My basement room, deliberately trashed. Expired food, unmade bed, dirty dishes. They'd staged it all and photographed it as evidence of my incapacity. Amanda testified next, sobbing delicately into a tissue. She talked about how concerned they'd been, how I'd become increasingly confused and difficult. She forgets to eat, Carly said, her voice breaking. We find her wandering the house at night, not knowing where she is. We've tried so hard to take care of her, but she fights us on everything. We love her, but we're terrified she's going to hurt herself. It was a masterful performance. Even I almost believed her. Tyler testified too, looking pained and reluctant, playing the devoted son who was heartbroken to have to take legal action against his own mother. I don't want to do this, he said. But Mom needs help she won't accept. The house is legally mine through the rental agreement we made years ago, but that's not what this is about. It's about getting her the care she needs. Margaret presented our case. I testified, tried to explain that none of this was true, that they were lying and manipulating, but Fuller made me seem confused and defensive. He asked me detailed questions about exact dates and times. When had I signed the deed? What day did I make my last mortgage payment? What was my bank account number? I couldn't remember all the specifics. Normal human forgetfulness. But he made it look like dementia. By the end of the hearing, I could see Judge Walsh had made up his mind. He didn't give a final ruling on the eviction, but he issued a temporary order that made my stomach drop. Based on the evidence presented regarding Mrs. Morrison's mental state, Judge Walsh said, I'm appointing her son Tyler Morrison as temporary guardian of her financial affairs, pending a full psychiatric evaluation. Mrs. Morrison's bank accounts will be frozen. Mr. Morrison will control all household decisions until we reconvene in 2 weeks. My world crumbled. Tyler now controlled my money. All of it. My pension checks, my savings, everything. That meant I couldn't pay Margaret, couldn't hire investigators, couldn't fight back. The judge also ordered me to undergo a psychiatric evaluation by a court-appointed psychiatrist within 2 weeks. If that evaluation showed incompetence, Tyler would get permanent guardianship and the house. I left the courthouse feeling like I'd already lost. Margaret squeezed my arm. We're not done fighting, she said, but her eyes were worried. That night, I lay in the musty basement room, staring at the ceiling, feeling hopeless. Then I heard a soft knock. The door cracked open, and Danny slipped inside. My grandson looked scared but determined. He crossed to my bed and whispered, "Grandma, don't worry. I know what they're doing is wrong. I'm going to help you." Danny pulled out his tablet from under his shirt. It was one of those kid-friendly devices, bright blue case, scratched from use. "I've been recording them," he whispered, glancing at the door. "Mom and Dad. I knew something was wrong. You were sad all the time, and they kept saying mean things about you when they thought I wasn't listening." My heart swelled with love and broke with fear at the same time. "Danny, sweetheart, you shouldn't be involved in this." "But I am involved, Grandma. You're my family, too. and they're lying about you." He opened the tablet and showed me the first video. The screen was small, but the audio was clear. It was Tyler and Carly in their bedroom talking. The camera angle showed the edge of a dresser, like the tablet had been propped up and hidden. Tyler's voice. "Once we get guardianship, we transfer the house to our names. Then we put her in the cheapest nursing home we can find. Medicaid will cover it." Carly's voice. "How long until we can sell the house?" Tyler. 6 months, maybe. We'll clear $600,000 easy after lawyer fees. Then we're set. We can buy that condo in San Francisco we wanted." Carly laughed. "I can't believe it's actually working. Your mother's so trusting. She never saw it coming." I listened with tears streaming down my face, hearing my son talk about me like I was nothing more than an obstacle to profit. Danny showed me another video. This one showed Carly and Tyler sitting at the kitchen table, papers spread out between them. "Okay, so in court you'll say she wanders at night," Carly coached. "Make sure you cry a little when you talk about how worried you are." Tyler practiced his sad face. They laughed together. A third video showed Tyler on the phone. "Dennis, it's Tyler Morrison. Yeah, the notary thing. I need you to say you remember her signing it clearly. 3,000 cash, just like we agreed. Half now, half after you testify." There were more videos. Weeks' worth. Danny had been documenting everything. "I hid the tablet in different places," Danny explained. "In the bookshelf, behind the couch, on top of the kitchen cabinets. They never noticed." I hugged him close. "You're so brave." "But Danny, if they find out." "I've been careful," he said. "I keep the tablet in my locker at school during the day. They don't know about these recordings." Hope flickered in my chest for the first time in weeks. "We need to show these to Margaret, my lawyer." "I know," Danny said. "That's why I'm telling you now. The next court date is in a week, right? We can show the judge." I called Margaret that night from the basement room, keeping my voice low. When I told her about the videos, I could hear the excitement in her voice. "This changes everything," she said. "This is proof of fraud, conspiracy, perjury. If we can present these videos in court, Tyler's case collapses completely." We made plans. Danny would bring the tablet to court. We'd present it as evidence. For the first time in months, I slept a little easier that night. But the next morning, everything started to fall apart again. I woke to hear Carly's voice upstairs, sharp and suspicious. "Where's he going? Danny, get back here." Danny must have been trying to leave for school with his backpack. "I'm just going to school, Mom." "You've been acting strange, sneaking around. What are you hiding?" "Nothing." "Let me see your backpack." I heard struggling, then Danny's voice panicked. "Mom, stop! That's my stuff." I ran upstairs. Carly had Danny's backpack and was dumping it out on the living room floor. Books, papers, pencils scattered everywhere. But the tablet wasn't there. Thank God. He must have already taken it to school yesterday. "What's going on?" I demanded. Carly whirled on me. "Stay out of this. My son is acting suspicious, and I'm going to find out why." Danny looked at me, terror in his eyes. I gave him the tiniest shake of my head. "Don't tell them about the tablet." "I'm not hiding anything," Danny said. "I just want to go to school." Tyler came downstairs, assessed the situation. "What's all this?" "Your son is being secretive," Carly said, "spending too much time with her." She pointed at me. "I think she's putting ideas in his head." Tyler's jaw tightened. "Danny, go to your room. We'll drive you to school later." "But I'll be late." I said, "Go to your room." Danny went, shooting me one last frightened glance. Tyler turned to me. "I don't know what you're trying to do, Mom, but leave Danny out of it. He's a child. Don't drag him into your problems." "I'm not dragging him anywhere," I said. He loves me. Is that so hard to believe? He's confused, Carly said. You're manipulating him. That afternoon, Margaret called me. Her voice was tight with stress. Mona, we have a problem. Dr. Shaw, the court-appointed psychiatrist, filed his preliminary report. Already? He hasn't even evaluated me yet. That's the problem. According to the report, he evaluated you 3 days ago, at your home. That's impossible. No one came to evaluate me. He claims he spent 2 hours with you. And Mona, the report is devastating. He says you showed signs of severe paranoid delusions, believing your family is conspiring against you. He recommends immediate psychiatric care and states you shouldn't be living independently. I felt sick. He's lying. Or Tyler bribed him. He never evaluated me. I believe you, but the report is now part of the court record. And there's more. Tyler has filed an emergency motion to have you removed from the house immediately for your own safety. Emergency hearing is tomorrow morning. Tomorrow? How can they do that? It's a judge's discretion in cases where someone might be in danger. If Judge Walsh grants it, you'll be forcibly removed and placed in a psychiatric facility before the main hearing. We were running out of time, and Tyler was closing every possible escape route. The emergency hearing was at 9 the next morning. I barely slept. Margaret met me at the courthouse, looking as exhausted as I felt. We're going to present the videos from Danny, she said. It's our best shot. Judge Walsh took the bench, looking irritated at having his schedule disrupted. Tyler and Carly sat with Gregory Fuller, both of them wearing expressions of concerned sadness. Fuller presented Dr. Shaw's report, arguing that I was in immediate psychological danger and needed emergency intervention. Tyler testified, his voice shaking with fake emotion. Your Honor, we found my mother talking to herself yesterday, completely disoriented. She didn't know what day it was. We're terrified something will happen to her. Carly sobbed into her hands. We found expired food hidden in her room. She's not eating properly. She's wasting away. We can't watch her 24 hours a day. She needs professional care. The expired food they'd planted. The conversations they'd made up. All lies, but convincing lies. Fuller showed more photographs. My room in complete disarray, though I'd left it neat. They must have trashed it after I'd gone to bed. Judge Walsh was nodding, clearly swayed. Mrs. Morrison does appear to need immediate evaluation. Margaret stood. Your Honor, before you rule, we have evidence that directly contradicts these claims. Evidence of fraud and conspiracy. Fuller objected. Your Honor, this is an emergency hearing about Mrs. Morrison's immediate safety, not a trial on the merits of the eviction case. I'll allow it, Judge Walsh said, though he looked impatient, briefly. Margaret looked toward the back of the courtroom where Danny was supposed to be sitting. Ruth had brought him, was supposed to be here with him. The back row was empty. Margaret's face went pale. Your Honor, if I could have just a moment. Miss Brennan, I don't have all day. I twisted in my seat, searching the courtroom. Where was Danny? Then the door opened. Danny rushed in, Ruth right behind him. He looked breathless, frightened, but he was clutching his tablet. Margaret exhaled in relief. Your Honor, we have video evidence obtained by Mrs. Morrison's grandson that proves the conspiracy against her. Danny walked forward. At 10 years old, he looked so small in that big courtroom, but he held his head up. Tyler's face had gone completely white. Carly grabbed his arm, whispered something frantic. Judge Walsh looked at Danny curiously. Son, do you have something you'd like to show the court? Yes, Your Honor, Danny said, his voice quavering but clear. I recorded my mom and dad. They don't know I have these videos. They show them planning to lie about my grandma. Tyler jumped to his feet. Your Honor, this is absurd. Our son is 10 years old. He's been manipulated by my mother. Sit down, Mr. Morrison, Judge Walsh said sharply. I want to see what the boy has. Danny connected the tablet to the courtroom's display system with Margaret's help. The large screen flickered to life. The first video played. Tyler and Carly's voices filled the courtroom, discussing how to get guardianship and sell the house, talking about putting me in a cheap facility. The courtroom erupted. People gasped. Tyler started shouting, "Those videos are fake! She coached him! This is entrapment!" Bailiff, control Mr. Morrison, Judge Walsh ordered, his face dark with anger. The bailiff stepped toward Tyler, who sat down, breathing hard. Danny played the second video. Tyler and Carly rehearsing their testimony, Carly practicing her tears. Then the third video. Tyler on the phone with Dennis Howard, explicitly discussing payment for false testimony. Judge Walsh's face was furious. Mr. Fuller, your clients have committed perjury in my courtroom. They've fabricated evidence. This is unconscionable. Fuller was sweating, his smooth confidence shattered. Your Honor, I had no knowledge of any impropriety. My clients assured me. Your clients lied, Judge Walsh snapped. He turned to Tyler and Carly. I am immediately dismissing this eviction case in its entirety. All previous orders are reversed. Mrs. Morrison's financial control is restored. Furthermore, I'm ordering you both to vacate Mrs. Morrison's property within 72 hours. Tyler was shaking his head. No, you can't. I can, and I am. You have perpetrated a fraud on this court. I'm referring this matter to the district attorney for criminal prosecution. Bailiff, escort Mr. and Mrs. Morrison out of this courtroom. But Tyler wasn't done. He stood up, his face twisted with desperation and rage. That child, he pointed at Danny, was coached by my mother. She manipulated him, used him to spy on us. Those recordings were made illegally. California is a two-party consent state. Those videos are inadmissible. Gregory Fuller, sensing a lifeline, jumped in. Your Honor, Mr. Morrison raises a valid legal point. California Penal Code, Section 632, requires all parties to consent to recording private conversations. These videos were obtained in violation of that statute. Judge Walsh's expression shifted, uncertainty creeping in. Miss Brennan? Margaret argued passionately. Your Honor, the recordings were made by a minor child in his own home. There are exceptions for documenting abuse and illegal activity. The content of these videos shows criminal conspiracy, Fuller countered. The exception applies to law enforcement investigations, not private citizens conducting surveillance. Furthermore, Mrs. Morrison could be charged with wiretapping, using her grandson to illegally record his parents. This is corruption of a minor, Your Honor. Back and forth they went, citing cases and statutes. Judge Walsh looked increasingly troubled. Finally, he held up his hand. Enough. This is a complex legal question that requires research. I'm ordering a 2-day continuance so I can review the relevant case law on whether these recordings are admissible. We'll reconvene on Thursday. Your Honor, Margaret protested. In the meantime, Mrs. Morrison, in the meantime, the status quo remains. Mr. Morrison, you and your family do not have to vacate yet. Everyone will maintain current living arrangements until I rule on Thursday. Tyler and Carly looked relieved. I felt sick. And Danny, Judge Walsh said, looking at my grandson. Son, I need you to leave that tablet with the bailiff. It's evidence now. We need to secure it. Danny's eyes widened. But it's all right, the judge said gently. We'll take good care of it. Danny handed over the tablet to the bailiff, looking back at me with frightened eyes. We left the courtroom. Tyler and Carly walked past us, and Tyler's expression when he looked at Danny was pure rage. That night, I heard Tyler yelling at Danny upstairs. Heard Danny crying. They'd grounded him, taken away all his privileges. Were telling him he'd done something illegal, that Grandma had made him do bad things. I wanted to go up there, protect him, but I was powerless. Margaret called that evening with more bad news. Fuller had filed a motion to have the videos excluded from evidence based on the recording laws. He'd also filed a formal complaint with the district attorney, asking them to investigate me for illegal wiretapping and corruption of a minor. If the DA takes it seriously, you could be charged criminally, Mona, Margaret said. This could backfire on us completely. What about Tyler? I asked. The conspiracy, the fraud, all of that? Without the videos as evidence, we're back where we started. It's your word against theirs. I felt like I was drowning. Worse, Fuller had filed an emergency petition for custody of Danny, claiming I'd used him for illegal activities and he needed protection from my influence. Social Services was now involved. A caseworker was coming to interview Danny. Everything I'd tried to do to save myself had put my grandson in danger. 3 days later, an investigator from Adult Protective Services arrived at my house. His name was Kenneth Wright. A thin man in his 40s with wire-rimmed glasses and a clipboard. He was cold, bureaucratic, treated me like I was already guilty of something. "I'm here to assess your living situation, Mrs. Morrison," he said. "Allegations have been made that you're not capable of independent living." Tyler and Carly had called APS on me. Of course they had. Kenneth Wright went through every room of my house, taking notes on everything. He pointed out a loose handrail on the stairs, found expired medications in my bathroom cabinet, bottles from years ago that I'd forgotten about, noticed dust on the high shelves in the living room. "Do you have help with housekeeping?" he asked. "I manage fine on my own," I said. He made a note. "At your age, maintaining a 2-story home can be challenging." He asked me dozens of questions about my daily routine, my finances, my medical history. Made me perform cognitive tests, asking me to remember lists of words, solve simple math problems, recall what I'd eaten for breakfast 3 days ago. I was so stressed and exhausted I couldn't think straight. Couldn't remember if I'd had oatmeal or toast on Monday morning. It was Friday now, and the days had all blurred together. Kenneth Wright's expression grew more skeptical with each wrong answer. After 3 hours, he left without telling me his conclusions. I collapsed on the couch afterward, feeling like I'd been interrogated by the police. That same week, Margaret Brennan called with devastating news. "Mona, I have to withdraw from your case," she said, and I could hear tears in her voice. "The bar complaint that Fuller filed against me is being taken seriously. My law firm is forcing me to step back from any case that could put me at further risk." "Margaret, no. Please. I'm so sorry. I'll give you referrals to other attorneys, but, Mona, most elder law attorneys charge substantial retainers, $25,000 to $30,000 up front. I had $19,000 left in my savings account. After Margaret's fees, court costs, the emergency locksmith I'd had to hire, not enough." "I'll try to find someone," I said numbly. "There are legal aid organizations," Margaret said. "I'll send you a list. But they're overwhelmed, and cases like yours, with this level of complexity, they might not be able to take on." After I hung up, I sat in silence. No lawyer, no money, no grandson. My house was slipping away, and I was powerless to stop it. The custody hearing for Danny was held the following week. Margaret had managed to find me a legal aid attorney for just that hearing, a young woman named Sarah Torres, who meant well, but was clearly in over her head. The hearing was before Judge Diane Crawford in family court, a stern woman in her 60s. A social worker named Patricia Ellis testified about her interview with Danny. "The child is emotionally distressed," Patricia said. "He gave concerning answers about feeling pressured to help his grandmother. He's confused about right and wrong, and worried about the consequences of what he did." I wanted to shout that of course Danny was distressed. Tyler and Carly had been terrorizing him for days. Fuller brought in a child psychologist, Dr. Helen Bates, who'd evaluated Danny. She testified that Danny showed signs of manipulation and conflicted loyalties. "The child needs stability and clear boundaries," Dr. Bates said. "I recommend he remain primarily with his parents, with only supervised visitation with the grandmother until family dynamics can be properly assessed." Sarah Torres tried to argue that I was Danny's safe person, that he'd come to me for help because he trusted me, but she didn't have the experience to counter Fuller's aggressive tactics. Judge Crawford ruled that pending a full custody evaluation, which would take 6 weeks, Danny would live with Tyler and Carly. I would be allowed supervised visits, 2 hours per week, with a social worker present. I wasn't even allowed to have my grandson alone. The first supervised visit was torture. We met at a community center, a bland room with plastic chairs and children's toys scattered on the floor. Danny arrived looking thinner than I'd ever seen him, with dark circles under his eyes. Patricia Ellis, the social worker, sat in the corner with her own tablet, monitoring us. Danny barely looked at me. He sat in a chair across from me, shoulders hunched, picking at his fingernails. "Hey, sweetheart," I said softly. "How are you?" "Okay," he mumbled. "I miss you so much." "I miss you too, Grandma." His voice was so small. I wanted to hug him, comfort him, but Patricia had warned me to keep physical contact minimal during these first visits. "Danny, you didn't do anything wrong," I said. "You were brave and honest. I'm so proud of you." His eyes filled with tears. "I made everything worse, Grandma. Dad says I betrayed the family. Mom says I destroyed everything. They say if I just kept quiet, everything would be fine." "That's not true, Danny. They were doing something wrong. You exposed the truth." "Mrs. Morrison," Patricia interrupted from her corner, "please don't discuss the legal case with the child. That's not appropriate for these visits." "I'm not discussing the case," I said. "I'm trying to reassure my grandson. The court order is very clear. No discussion of the legal proceedings." I bit back my frustration and tried to talk to Danny about school, about his friends, about anything normal, but he was withdrawn, frightened. After 45 minutes, Patricia said Danny seemed tired and we should cut the visit short. I watched my grandson leave, his small shoulders slumped with a burden no child should carry. That night, I got the letter from APS. Kenneth Wright's report recommended conservatorship proceedings. The letter listed all the reasons I was supposedly incompetent: the loose handrail, the expired medications, my performance on the cognitive tests, my social isolation, my financial vulnerability. A court hearing was scheduled for 3 weeks away. If the judge granted conservatorship, a county public guardian would take control of my life. They could force me into a nursing home, sell my house, control every decision I made. Everything Tyler had wanted to do, the state would do for him. I sat in my empty house that night, alone, and I honestly didn't know if I could keep fighting. I'd lost my lawyer, lost access to my grandson, was losing my home and my freedom. Then the doorbell rang. I almost didn't answer. It was after 9 at night. But something made me check the peephole. Ruth stood on my porch. And she wasn't alone. 3 other women were with her: Janet, Carol, and Beth, my former teaching colleagues from Riverside Elementary. I opened the door, and Ruth pulled me into a fierce hug. "We're not letting you go through this alone," she said. "We've been investigating." They came inside, and Janet spread documents across my kitchen table. Carol opened a laptop. Beth pulled out a notebook filled with handwritten notes. "We've spent the last 6 weeks digging into everyone involved in this case," Ruth said. "And Mona, we found things." Janet, who worked at the county recorder's office, pointed to a document. "Tyler took out a home equity loan against your property 2 years ago, $130,000. Look at this signature." She showed me a loan document with my name signed at the bottom, except it wasn't my signature. Close, but not quite right. "He forged it," I breathed. "He embezzled $130,000 from you," Janet said. "This is felony fraud." Carol's daughter was a paralegal. Carol had asked her to research Gregory Fuller, Tyler's attorney. "Fuller has been sanctioned by the state bar twice," Carol said, showing me records on her laptop. "Once for witness tampering, once for suborning perjury. He's known for taking ethically questionable cases." Beth's husband was a retired private investigator. Beth had hired him to look into Dr. Samuel Porter, the psychiatrist who'd claimed to evaluate me. "Porter has testified in 12 other guardianship cases in the past 3 years," Beth said, consulting her notebook. "In 11 of those cases, the alleged incapacitated person ended up losing their assets to family members who were his clients. He's running a scam. He takes cash payments for favorable evaluations. We have phone records showing dozens of calls between Tyler, Fuller, and Porter," Beth continued. "They coordinated everything. Ruth had been working on Dennis Howard, the notary who'd testified about me signing the rental agreement. I tracked Dennis down," Ruth said. "Told him we were investigating. Told him he could be charged as an accessory to fraud. He's terrified, Mona. He agreed to confess everything in exchange for immunity. I have his sworn statement. They'd built a case against Tyler, against all of them. Evidence of conspiracy, fraud, forgery, embezzlement. This changes everything," I said, hope surging through me for the first time in weeks. "There's just one problem," Ruth said. "Tomorrow is your final hearing on the defamation case. Tyler's suing you for $250,000, remember? I'd almost forgotten about that. In the chaos of everything else, Tyler's lawsuit claiming I defamed him by accusing him of fraud had gotten lost. If you lose that case, you'll have to pay him a judgment," Ruth said. "You'll be bankrupted. You'll have to sell the house. We have evidence to clear your name," Carol said. "But getting it admitted without a lawyer, with less than 24 hours' notice, it's almost impossible," Beth finished. "We needed a miracle. We needed an attorney who would take my case tonight, with no retainer, and be ready for trial tomorrow morning. It seemed hopeless." Then Ruth's phone rang. She answered, listened, and her face lit up. "Mona," she said, "that was my nephew, Marcus Brennan. He's an attorney who just moved here from San Francisco. He specializes in elder abuse cases. I told him about your situation last week, and he's been following it. He wants to help." Marcus Brennan arrived at my house 30 minutes later. He was in his early 40s, tall and confident, with kind eyes and an air of competence that made me believe, for the first time in months, that I might actually survive this. "Mrs. Morrison," he said, shaking my hand, "I've reviewed the basics of your case through my Aunt Ruth. What's been done to you is unconscionable. I'd like to represent you pro bono." "The trial is tomorrow morning," I said. "How can we possibly prepare?" "We work through the night," Marcus said simply. "I've handled cases like this before. Elder financial abuse, fraudulent guardianships. I know the patterns, the tactics. And thanks to your friends here, we have evidence." We spread everything across the kitchen table. Marcus reviewed each document, each statement, each piece of evidence with a lawyer's careful eye. He asked questions, made notes, built a strategy. By 3 in the morning, we had a plan. By 6, Marcus had drafted motions and prepared his arguments. At 7:30, exhausted but determined, we headed to the courthouse. The defamation trial was at 9. The courtroom was different this time, larger. A new judge presided, Judge Barbara Klein, a woman in her 70s with silver hair and sharp, intelligent eyes. She had a reputation for being tough but fair. Tyler and Carly sat with Gregory Fuller. They looked confident, smug even. They thought they'd already won. Marcus stood for our opening statement. Your Honor, what we have here is not a defamation case. It's a criminal conspiracy. Tyler Morrison and his associates have perpetrated an elaborate fraud against his elderly mother to steal her home and assets. We intend to prove, beyond any doubt, that every accusation Mrs. Morrison made was true. And we intend to show that Mr. Morrison, his attorney Mr. Fuller, and several others have committed multiple felonies. Fuller objected loudly, but Judge Klein silenced him with a look. I'll hear the evidence, Mr. Fuller. If it's as Mr. Brennan claims, you may want to consider your own legal situation. Marcus called Dennis Howard as our first witness. Dennis shuffled to the stand, looking terrified. He'd been granted immunity by the DA's office in exchange for his testimony, a deal Marcus had helped arrange overnight. Under oath, Dennis confessed everything. Tyler had paid him $5,000 to lie about witnessing me sign the rental agreement, had threatened him when he hesitated, had coached him on what to say. The courtroom erupted. Tyler jumped to his feet, shouting, "He's lying! This is a setup!" Judge Klein's gavel cracked like thunder. "Mr. Morrison, sit down and be quiet, or I will have you removed from this courtroom." Tyler sat, his face red with rage. Marcus called Janet next. She presented the forged loan documents, explained how Tyler had stolen $130,000 using my house as collateral without my knowledge or consent. "This is felony fraud and embezzlement," Marcus said. "Mr. Morrison has been systematically looting his mother's assets for years." Carol testified about Fuller's history of ethical violations. Beth's husband presented his surveillance evidence. Photos of Dr. Porter accepting cash from Tyler outside a restaurant. Phone records showing the conspiracy. Each piece of evidence built on the last, creating an undeniable picture of coordinated fraud. Then Marcus did something I hadn't expected. He called Tyler to the stand. Fuller tried to object, tried to protect his client, but Judge Klein ordered Tyler to testify. Tyler took the stand, sweating, defensive. Marcus questioned him calmly, methodically, laying traps that Tyler walked right into. "Mr. Morrison, did you or did you not take out a home equity loan on your mother's property?" "Aye. That was a misunderstanding. The bank made an error that put $130,000 in your account. I was going to pay it back. Were you? With what money? You deposited most of it into offshore accounts. We have the records." Tyler's face went pale. He hadn't known we'd traced the money. Marcus went in for the kill, presenting document after document, statement after statement. Tyler tried to maintain his lies, but they were crumbling around him. Finally, Marcus presented the videos from Danny, the same ones that had been in legal limbo. Fuller jumped up. "Your Honor, those videos are inadmissible. They were obtained illegally." Marcus smiled. "Actually, Your Honor, the California Supreme Court ruled just last year in People v. Sin Payne, Thornton, that recordings made by minors documenting abuse or criminal activity in their own homes are admissible as evidence, regardless of two-party consent laws. The ruling specifically addresses situations where the child is acting to protect themselves or a family member from harm." Fuller's face went slack. He hadn't known about that ruling. Judge Klein reviewed the case citation, then nodded. The videos are admitted. We played them in court. Tyler and Carly discussing their plan to steal my house, rehearsing their lies. Tyler arranging payment for false testimony. When the videos finished, the courtroom was silent. Judge Klein's expression was thunderous. Mr. Morrison, Mrs. Morrison, I have been a judge for 32 years. I have seen a lot of terrible things, but what you have done to your own mother is among the most despicable acts I have witnessed in this courtroom. She turned to the bailiff. Detain Mr. Morrison and Mr. Fuller. I'm referring this case immediately to the district attorney for criminal prosecution. The bailiff moved toward Tyler. Tyler tried to run, actually tried to bolt for the door, but the bailiff caught him easily. Handcuffs clicked around his wrists. Fuller was detained as well, protesting loudly about his rights, about how he'd been misled by his client. Carly burst into tears. Real tears this time, crying that she didn't know, that Tyler had made her do it. But we had videos of her actively participating. She was complicit in everything. Judge Klein dismissed Tyler's defamation lawsuit with prejudice. Not only is this case dismissed, but I'm awarding Mrs. Morrison costs and fees. Furthermore, I'm issuing an immediate restraining order against Mr. and Mrs. Morrison. They are not to contact Mrs. Morrison or come within 500 feet of her property. She wasn't done. I'm also referring Dr. Samuel Porter to the medical board for investigation, and I'm ordering the state bar to investigate Mr. Fuller's conduct in this matter. The systematic abuse of the legal system I've witnessed here will not be tolerated. Tyler was led out in handcuffs. As he passed me, he wouldn't meet my eyes. Danny had been sitting in the back of the courtroom with Ruth. When the bailiff took Tyler away, Danny ran to me. I caught him in my arms, held him tight while he sobbed against my shoulder. It's over, sweetheart, I whispered. It's finally over. That afternoon, there was an emergency hearing in family court. Judge Crawford reviewed the evidence from the morning's trial. She immediately reversed her custody decision and granted me temporary guardianship of Danny. Carly, facing her own criminal charges, didn't fight it. She voluntarily relinquished custody, probably hoping it would help her case. It didn't. The APS investigation was dropped. Kenneth Wright called to apologize, said he'd been given false information, and he was sorry for the distress he'd caused. Over the next 3 months, the criminal case proceeded. Tyler was charged with fraud, forgery, elder abuse, perjury, and embezzlement. Faced with overwhelming evidence, his new attorney advised him to take a plea deal. Tyler pleaded guilty to avoid trial. He was sentenced to 8 years in state prison. Carly testified against Tyler, trying to minimize her own involvement. She got 3 years probation and mandatory counseling. She also agreed to give up all parental rights to Danny in exchange for a reduced sentence. Gregory Fuller was disbarred. He'd knowingly participated in fraud, had suborned perjury, had violated nearly every ethical rule in the book. Dr. Samuel Porter lost his medical license. The investigation revealed he'd been running similar scams for years, taking payments to provide false evaluations in guardianship cases. Several of his previous cases were being reviewed. As for me, I was awarded full restitution. The $130,000 Tyler had stolen, plus $50,000 in damages for emotional distress. The court put a lien on any assets Tyler had left, which wasn't much, but it was something. My house was fully restored to my name, all the fake liens and loans removed. The title was clear, unencumbered, mine again. Danny moved in with me permanently. It took time for him to heal. He had nightmares at first, would wake up crying, terrified that his father would come back. We got him into therapy with a wonderful counselor who specialized in childhood trauma. Slowly, gradually, he began to feel safe again. Now, 6 months later, I stand in my rose garden, the same spot where this nightmare began, where I overheard Carly's phone call and realized my son was planning to destroy me. Danny is beside me, helping me plant new roses. We've chosen varieties with hopeful names: Hope, Resilience, New Beginning. "Grandma," Danny says, patting soil around a new bush, "do you think Dad will ever say he's sorry? Really sorry?" I've been dreading this question. Tyler sent a letter from prison last month, full of apologies and regrets. It felt hollow, self-serving, the words of a man trying to feel better about himself, not truly seeking forgiveness. "I don't know, sweetheart," I tell Danny honestly. "Maybe someday he'll understand what he did was wrong. Maybe not. But that's not what matters now." "What matters?" Danny asks. "What matters is us. You and me. Ruth and Janet and Carol and Beth and Marcus. The people who stood by us, who fought for us. That's family, Danny. Not blood, but choice. Not obligation, but love." Danny nods, thinking about this. "I chose you, Grandma. When Dad wanted me to lie and say you were crazy, I chose you." "You did," I say, putting my arm around him. "You were the bravest person in that whole mess, 10 years old, and you stood up for what was right, even when it was terrifying." "Were you scared?" he asks. "Every single day," I admit. "I was scared I'd lose my home, scared I'd lose you, scared I wasn't strong enough to fight back. But you did fight back." "I did, because you showed me how. You taught me that courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about doing the right thing even when you're terrified." We water the new roses together. The afternoon sun is warm on my face. The house stands behind us, solid and beautiful, its windows gleaming. My house, my home, everything I fought to keep. I spent so many years avoiding conflict, trying to keep peace at any cost. I thought being kind meant being silent, that love meant accepting whatever treatment I received because family was supposed to stick together. I was wrong about all of it. Kindness includes boundaries. Love includes accountability. And sometimes the strongest thing you can do is refuse to be a victim, to stand up and say, "No, this is wrong, and I will not accept it." I almost lost everything. My home, my autonomy, my freedom, my grandson. I came within days of being declared incompetent and locked away in some facility, while my son sold my house and pocketed the money. But I survived. Not because I was strong enough alone, but because I let others help me carry the burden. Ruth, Janet, Carol, Beth, Marcus. Even Margaret, who fought for me until she couldn't anymore. And most of all, Danny, who had the courage to document the truth when no adult would listen. That's the real lesson here. We're not meant to survive alone. We're meant to lift each other up, to fight for each other, to refuse to let injustice win. Tyler tried to take everything from me. He failed, not just because we had evidence or good lawyers or luck, but because the truth is powerful. Even when the world tries to silence it, even when the system seems rigged against you, the truth has a way of breaking through. And when someone tries to knock you down, when they try to steal your dignity and your life and everything you've worked for, you get back up. Every single time. You fight back. Because your life, your home, your truth are worth defending. I look at Danny, this brave, beautiful child who saved me, and I make a silent promise. I'll spend whatever years I have left teaching him what I learned too late. That strength comes from standing up for yourself, that family is built on trust and respect, not obligation and manipulation, and that you should never let fear keep you silent when something is wrong. The roses we planted today will bloom next spring. They'll grow strong and beautiful, just like Danny will, just like I have. We walk back to the house together, hand in hand, the evening sun painting everything gold. This is my home, our home, and no one will ever take it from us again. Let me ask you something. Have you ever had to stand up to someone you loved, knowing it might destroy that relationship? Have you ever had to choose between keeping the peace and defending yourself? It's one of the hardest things in the world, isn't it? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story touched your heart or made you think about the people in your own life, please hit that like button. And if you want to hear more stories about ordinary people facing extraordinary challenges and finding the courage to overcome, please subscribe to this channel and ring that notification bell so you never miss a story. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Maybe someone who's dealing with a difficult family situation, or someone who needs a reminder that it's okay to stand up for yourself, even when it's hard. Sometimes people need to know they're not alone in their struggles. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I hope it reminds you that no matter how dark things seem, no matter how powerful your opponents appear, the truth and courage and community can overcome almost anything. Take care of yourselves, stand up for what's right, and remember, you're stronger than you think you are.